My name's Corey. I am the co-founder at Rose City Games with Will, an officer with PIGSquad, and also last year you may have known me from working with Jump Drive Studios on EXO with Kickstarter campaign, all that good stuff. So yeah, that is me. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what marketing actually is, because it kind of encompasses a lot of different things. So this isn't my example, but I can't find who wrote this on the internet. I've seen it all over the place. But good question for you, right? Like, can I do this if I don't cite somebody? I'm gonna do it. If anybody figures out who said this, I'll totally tweet and give them credit. But I love this thing. Also, I posted this on Twitter, and it was like my most successful tweet ever. So, just marketing. So yeah, the idea is that there's like kind of 5 like key parts to marketing. So I won't read this totally out loud because I think everybody doesn't need to hear me read. But yeah, so that's kind of advertising, and then putting a sign on the back of the elephant would be promotion. If the elephant walks through a flower bed, that's the mayor's, I guess. That's publicity. If you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's PR. And then if all that good stuff works out and people get their tickets and they have a good time, that's sales. So that's kind of marketing in a nutshell. So what I did was kind of retool this for games, just to be on topic. So advertising would be like if you throw $20 at a Facebook boosted post. Promotion would be bringing your game to PIGSquad Drink and Draw. Publicity would be if you say something really questionable about the game industry on camera. Public relations would be apologizing and shutting down your Twitter account, possibly. And sales would be if you did all that stuff and people didn't care and they still went to Steam and they bought your game and they loved it and you got great reviews. Biggest thing to think about is when you want to actually start marketing. People have different ideas of when they want to start. Some people want to start right away. They want to share all the nitty-gritty development stuff and super gross builds and little boxes hopping around. I personally like that method because it just gives you a ton to work with. And I think that it can be really good to show something in a rough state and improve upon that as you go. But the truth is a lot of indies think of marketing as something that comes way, way later in development. When I first started making games, I used to wait until about the week before I would release a game, and then I would reach out to about 100 websites, and I would only hit them, just the contact forms. I wouldn't do any research on the journalists or anything like that, and maybe get like 2 or 3 responses, and like maybe one of them would actually post something. So I've got a lot of experience with that, and it usually just doesn't work. Like no matter how cute and quirky and unique you think your game is, like people are super busy and they want to post about something that's new and exciting. They need time to do that. So you want to really think about like how soon you want to start your marketing efforts and when you want to start researching journalists, because it's a ton of work. And promotion and networking, all those gross things that aren't as fun as coding and making awesome artwork and doing rad music, it's just as important. So the earlier you start thinking about that, the better off you're going to be. So I wanted to share this with everybody. This was something that me and Hagen's not here tonight, is he?
Nope.
Okay.
He's texting me.
Oh, okay, cool. So myself and Hagen made this little game jam marketing checklist. And if you're coming to Global Game Jam, we're going to print out a bunch more of these and hand them out. It's available online. There's a Gama Sutra article, and I think it's somewhere on PIGSquad, maybe? It should be. So this was just kind of something that we put together that was just like the basics that you should try to set yourself up to do. And I wanted to kind of go into this a little bit more in depth, mainly because there was a ton of teams that did summer slow jams this summer, and I think like maybe I saw 3 teams that actually did like a few things off this list, and I want to see more. I want to see good marketing in PIGSquad. So yeah, I want to just kind of dive right in here. So these are the skills that I think everybody who's doing marketing should have. You need to know just a little bit of Photoshop. You don't need to be a pro. I get by with just moving stuff around. I'm by no means a designer, but I can just kind of make stuff happen in Photoshop. And there's plenty of people you can ask little tips for and stuff. I've just been picking it up as I go. Another great thing is having some sort of video editing experience. So if you want to cut like a promotional video or even just making GIFs, just knowing your way around like iMovie or Premiere, something like that is really, really useful. And then knowing how to actually read analytics and kind of process that data and use it is a really good thing to do. You can set up Google Analytics really easily on your website. Twitter and Facebook are going to track that stuff automatically. It's just available to you to use. So some stuff that you can take away from that is looking at when your most successful posts are happening. So typically for me, when I post on Facebook about a game I'm working on, in between like 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. is typically when you would get the most engagement. So I would try to make sure that all the most important posts that I do in that are going to happen in that window so that most people are going to see it. Just one example of something you can do with analytics. Yeah. So this was kind of some of the stuff that was in that Game Jam marketing checklist that I want to go over a little bit more. So taking screenshots should be super easy. This should be something that you do every single day. It doesn't matter if you're not really working on anything that exciting. Just take one screenshot of what you're working on, and over time, you're going to have just a ton of stuff, and you can just keep your website updated with new screenshots, and you got something to tweet like every single day if you want to. Super, super easy to do. Just something you should start doing. And then, does everybody use Open Broadcaster software for video recording? It's like the best thing ever. It's free. This is what we're using to stream this Twitch thing right now too, so kind of has two functions. So if you're taking notes, write down Open Broadcaster software and download that. It's PC, Mac, and Linux. You're good every which way. And then another thing that's super important is refining your elevator pitch all the time. When you first start talking about your game, you might only mention like one feature or one character or something like that. So as the game progresses, you want to just keep refining that elevator pitch. Once you get to a point where you feel like you're going to start saying it to everybody and it's going to feel like really, really good and you think, yeah, this is exciting, people's eyes kind of light up, that's when you know you got something. If it's super long and you kind of see people go into that like kind of daze like this and they're like kind of half listening, then you need to work on it.
Like everybody here right now.
Exactly. I got Wario up on the screen right now. They're with me, don't worry. Okay, so you've got all your awesome content, you've got your screenshots, and you've got promotional videos. Sorry, I'll try to stay out of there, so I don't want to cover up Wario. So where do you actually put this stuff? Anybody use PressKit already? Do PressKit? Yeah. Not enough. Everybody here, if you've got a game, you should have a PressKit for this. It's another thing that's totally free, and you don't have to have a website for it or a Tumblr or any of that kind of stuff. You just put it up, and if you want to reach out to press or publishers or anybody, it's got everything in there. And at the end of this, I'll probably try to pull up an example of what a press kit looks like just so you can see how that's all laid out. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Reddit, any place that you feel like you're comfortable posting your stuff, get on that. You don't have to be everywhere. I personally only really have Facebook because of PIGSquad. I probably wouldn't have it if I weren't sharing game stuff. It's just something to think about. Like, if you want to get people's attention with that kind of stuff, you want to be on those things. And you don't have to be, like, super expert with Twitter or anything like that. There's a lot of game developers who just post weird stuff all day long, and they get a ton of followers. Who's a good example of something like that?
What's the bear guy?
Yeah.
He's doing the Danny DeVito gifs
I
right now.
don't even know. Is that game called Punches Bears?
Oh, that's the account's name, I think, is Punches Bears.
I don't know what that game is called, but I'm buying it as soon as it comes out because all he does is post weird gifs of bears like swinging around a Thunderdome, and he just tweets them at Devolver. And I don't think it's a Devolver game. He just tweets it at Devolver all day long, trying to get their attention, which I think one is genius and hilarious at the same time. So yeah, and also like if you're on Reddit every single day and contributing to that kind of stuff, like the game dev subreddit and there's indie game subreddit and everything, like there's plenty of places. So just kind of find where you feel comfortable and what's working, more importantly, and just kind of stick to that sort of thing. On number 9, oh yeah, find your audience. So it's like really tiny. I got a little tiny Wario here and then my notes here, so I remember what the hell I'm talking about. So yeah, if you're paying close attention, you should start to notice what's actually working. So this can go along with checking your analytics and that sort of thing too. So say you post like a really great GIF and you get 100 retweets or something like that. You should probably start making more GIFs that are similar to that sort of thing and just kind of keep that ball rolling as much as you can. So for example, when I was working on XO stuff before Kickstarter, I would read a lot of comments where people were saying, oh, this is like Battlestar Galactica, the game. So I listened to all those people, and I started hitting up Battlestar Galactica forums and Facebook groups and that sort of thing, and we got a lot of attention for that. We actually took the game to Galacticon in Seattle, which was a fucking disaster it's a whole different story. But we kind of went all in on that route, and it worked out. Hot tips. So for Facebook, this is just some little things that I picked up last year as I was doing different stuff, and things I didn't know about when I first got started doing this stuff. So on Facebook, likes are totally meaningless now. So if you have like 50 likes on a post and no comments, it's not going to get pushed to the top. Likes just don't get registered at all. However, if you've got a bunch of people talking in the comments section, it's just going to keep getting pushed up to the top. So it's kind of a good incentive for you to respond to comments, and after you post something like a press release or a video or something, just kind of hang around in Facebook and see if anybody's commenting in there, and just kind of keep that going so that you can keep your post at the top for longer. Videos are really, really great for engagement. That's probably the best thing you can post on Facebook, and it's actually worth it to take that little bit extra time to upload a video directly to Facebook instead of just posting a YouTube link. I don't know if it still works the same way, but at least recently, and on my devices, if you post a YouTube link, it won't automatically start playing when you scroll past. If you upload it to Facebook, when you're scrolling down that feed, if you just wait for a second, it'll start rolling, and that's what you want. It's just as good as a GIF in that sense. Moving on to Twitter, GIFs are like the absolute best thing you can do. So learn how to make GIFs and just make a ton of them. Specifically for Twitter, you got to make sure that your GIFs are 300 pixels wide or it won't accept it. And you have to keep them under 5 megabytes now is I think the limit. Earlier last year was like 2 megabytes, so my GIFs had to be like these little tiny little things that were, just fire things everywhere. And now you can do 5 megabytes. So you can have a really, really long GIF, and it's the best thing ever. Oh yeah, and Reddit. So anybody post on like Marketing Monday and Screenshot Saturday and stuff on Reddit? So, did you know that those things reset around the same time every single day, or on the day of the week? So what I used to do is on Marketing Monday, I would have all of my text that I wanted to post in there ready Sunday night, and I think it switched over at like 10 p.m. or something Pacific, and I would just copy and paste and be like the first person on Marketing Monday, like for 4 weeks in a row or something like that. And then I would just go to sleep and then wake up and address any comments or anything like that. It's typically the same for all of like the game dev subreddit stuff, and on indie games subreddit there's self mega post, I think is what it's called, or self post mega thread, something like that. Those are really good places just to get one, great feedback for your game, and just to get some more eyes on your project as well. So, everybody's shown a game with PIGSquad at some point, drink and draw or art code night or something like that. So the best thing about PIGSquad is that you really don't ever have an excuse not to be showing off your game in person. There's, I think, something at least every single month where you could bring your game and show it off, and it's a really, really good opportunity, so don't let that go to waste. You can be, for like $0, you can pretty much get this game in front of as many people as you would going up to like iFest, or sometimes going into like things like the Indie Mega Mix, or Media Indie Mega Mix. I don't know, Media Indie Exchange Mix. Media Indie Exchange, that's sure what it is. Yeah. So, I've been to a couple of those where there's about 300 people, and the drink and draws are about the same size, and that's right here in town. You don't have to pay any money to travel. So, yeah. That's my thing for PIGSquad. I'm marketing PIGSquad now. Yay. Don't let anybody tell you that marketing to game developers isn't like a good avenue. I personally spend more money than any of my friends on video games a year. I think it's probably true for a lot of game developers as well. The good thing about posting to like the game dev subreddit and all that kind of stuff is it gets people talking. So if you get a bunch of game developers talking about your game, then you're probably going to start to get a bunch of press talking about your game, and then you're probably going to get some publishers talking about your game. That kind of stuff just can all snowball. So I think it's the game dev subreddit where they say Not to like market your game to game developers. This isn't the place for that. I mean, you don't have to be like gross about it. You can just be sharing your progress, and there's nothing gross about that, and it's still marketing. Oh yeah, and bringing your game to events and stuff like PIGSquad. This is a great chance for you to kind of think about what the hooks of your game are and how long you want to work on that project. So if you see people playing your game and they're like hyper focused on this one thing that you didn't think was that big of a deal, or like a level that you thought was really shitty and it turns out everybody loves it, it's a great opportunity to find that stuff and kind of refocus your tactics. Advanced tip, if anybody's using Unity, you can hook up Unity Analytics and you can track all the stuff that people are doing in your game before you actually release it and kind of get a jump on that sort of thing before actually pushing your game out. Another good thing you can do at these events is trying to get unbiased feedback. So I do know the guy who said all this stuff. His name is Vlad Miku. He's got a bunch of really good marketing videos on YouTube. It's if anybody's taking notes, it's VLADMICU. I would look him up. He's got a lot of really great talks. And I probably should have put that in there so you didn't have to write it down and have me spell it for you. So anytime I'm showing a game off in an event, I like to ask the three big questions. What did you like? What didn't you like? And what was confusing? What's good about this is you kind of let people say something really nice. For the most part, people don't like to be rude or anything. They don't want to get in your face and tell you your game sucks. So if you let them say something nice, then they don't feel as bad about coming back and saying like, well, your jumping feels really bad, so maybe you should work on that. And then try to lead with what was confusing just so you can get another little piece of useful feedback. The bad stuff's never fun to hear, but it's always the most useful, so just really, really try to see if you can get that out of anybody. And another piece of advice I recently got from Steve Gaynor from Fulbright was to not start jumping in and correcting people or try to explain yourself out of a situation. So if somebody is saying like, oh, I was really confused by this part of the game, and you jump in and you say, oh, well, no, I'm totally aware of that. I'm going to fix it. Like, just, don't worry about that. Don't do that because you're just going to shut them down, and then they're not going to want to give you any more feedback after that. I did that all the time, like especially at GDC and like every event that I used to bring XO to last year. I think I did that like 90% of the time, where I just like, oh, no, we know, it's fine. We're getting to that. Its laser's going to look great. Don't worry about it.
Everybody does that all the time.
Yeah. And I just recently tried to stop myself from doing that. So it's a hot tip. Yeah. So once you get your game feeling good, you may want to start thinking about how you're going to release it. Do you want to go to Kickstarter? Do you want to do a Steam Greenlight? Do you need to talk to publishers? So XO's Kickstarter took about 6 months to plan, and that was with me working full-time. I was doing a weekly devlog update, posting articles on Gama Sutra. I think I made like 260 GIFs in about 6 months. It's a ton of work. So you really got to think about what your game plan is for the full scope of this. And remember, if you're going to Kickstarter and you get successful, you're kind of on the hook now. So this is another thing you want to think about. If you make a game in your basement and you fail, it's not really that big of a deal because nobody's watching over your shoulder and saw you do it. But once you go through Kickstarter and you start to get hundreds and thousands of backers who are expecting great things from you, it can just be really, really stressful. So make sure that you're prepared for that sort of situation before you go too deep into it. Some other good things that can come out of crowdfunding, like going to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, this can dramatically improve your search engine optimization. If you Google XO now, I think it's like the 5th thing that pops up, just XO by itself, and I'm real proud of that. So Kickstarter was like, that didn't happen until Kickstarter. Like, we were on like page 12 or something, I think. Like Beyonce is really, really hard to get past.
Yeah,
So
still is.
yeah, she's still on top. I don't think we're ever gonna get past that. But doing a Kickstarter also kind of proves your market for your game too, and that's great if you want to talk to publishers. If you've got like a scalable game, a roguelike or something like that, you can use Kickstarter to decide how much content you want to put in there. Maybe you only want to do 20 levels instead of 200 levels because maybe you got $650,000 on Kickstarter and you want to take some more time to do it. It's also really helpful to build your press relations. It's really, really hard to get press early on, especially if you've never released a game before. So having a game go through green lights kind of helps. Having a successful Kickstarter really, really helps. So that's another huge plus. Time for more hot tips. Sorry, I just really like these flaming Wario things, so I had to put that in there. So yeah. Steam and Kickstarter images, you want to make those 680 pixels wide. The reason that is because if you've got the website full screen, the images are going to stretch out all the way, and then when you shrink it, they're going to scale really, really nicely. And that's the same right now. It's the same for Kickstarter and Steam Greenlight. So just something to be aware of. So watching videos, this is something that the Star Mazer guys gave a talk on, and it really stuck with me. Don, the head of the Star Mazer team, said that 40 seconds is the average time that somebody will watch a video before they just click on to something else. So if you watch their trailer on Kickstarter for Star Mazer, it ends like 39 seconds. It's just like they perfectly put that in there, and he said that was no mistake. And sure enough, like if I look through all the YouTube analytics for every XO video, right around 40 seconds is when people kind of tune out. So you want to think about what's happening in those 40 seconds. You don't necessarily have to make a 40-second video, but you should think about front-loading all the important stuff that you want there. If you want to have it be a 2-minute video, that's great. For people who are going to stick around, not everybody's going to just bail on you before a minute. But really think about those 40 seconds and that you need to get everything that you need to say accomplished in that amount of time. And also don't put like a big my cool game company logo and it's like animating and spinning for like 20 seconds or something like that. It's so many times that happens. It'll just be like some game company you've never heard of, and it's so long, and that's prime real estate for your video. So just put that shit at the end. Don't do that. Oh yeah, the timing was that's the 25th when it was 24. On Greenlight, you may notice that a lot of people use animated logos, and that's really, really great. If you're scrolling through Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, first time you see something move, you just kind of hang for a second, right? Like as soon as you see like movement, you're just like, oh wait, something's moving on me. Oh, okay. Like it's the same thing for Greenlight. So if you can animate any logos or like a Twitter avatar lets you do that now too. Anything, just like everybody should be making GIFs just all the time, man. Just get good at GIFs. And yeah, the 22 here, timing is everything, is something that I wanted to add in really quick. So you typically have like about 2 to 3 days when you post something big. So if your game launches on Greenlight, or you launch a Kickstarter campaign, or even just a release date, any of that big stuff, your first 2 to 3 days when that happens are just so important. So if you're going to launch Kickstarter, posting it at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday night is like the worst idea ever, because everybody's busy doing their own thing on Saturday night, and then nobody's really wanting to spend money on stuff on Sunday morning. And then by Monday, there's all this other news that's come out, and your Kickstarter's already 2 days old at that point. So you really got to think about timing. For XO's Kickstarter, we very we figured out the timeline where we hit 30. It was a 31-day campaign. We started on a Monday, ended on a Wednesday. We started on a Monday and ended on a Wednesday. So our 3 days were Monday through Wednesday at both ends. And it's really hard to actually make that happen. We just picked like the perfect time in July to like make that work. And especially think about press. Like a lot of people who are writing for websites aren't, at least in my experience, checking their email on the weekends. So people get in on Monday and they've got a ton of stuff, and hopefully your thing gets picked up. But if you're buried in a weekend email and stuff like that, it can really hurt you. Oh yeah, getting back to press. Getting press is very hard. He's having a hard time.
Yeah.
He tried to get some press, and he was in for a surprise. So like I said at the beginning, when I started working on games, I would wait until like a week before the release, and that just totally didn't work out for me. I already talked about all this stuff. Doing a great job. So what I started doing is instead of just hitting up the like the contact, just those big fields you have to fill out like 5 things and send it into the fucking void where nobody's gonna check that message. I started actually researching journalists who would write about the actual genre of the game that I was working on. So for XO, I was researching people who talked about games like FTL and Homeworld and other sci-fi games like that. And I think before we went to Kickstarter, I had a list of 200 websites with at least 2 journalists on every single one of those websites who had written something about a sci-fi game. And it's like a ton of work, but it's way more worth your time to do that than to spend hours filling out those contact forms. Because for most of the bigger sites, that's just going nowhere. I have had it actually reach somebody before, but your chances are just much lower in my experience. So taking the time to actually research the people that you're reaching out to and write them an individual email is totally worth it. Yeah. I also found out that reaching out on Twitter is just as good as emailing people nowadays. I think I actually got maybe half and half of a response. Like, if I couldn't get in touch with somebody on email, I would just ping them on Twitter or just follow them and see if they followed me back, and then you can direct message them. So in my big spreadsheet, I had email addresses for all the journalists and Twitter handles, if that applied. I don't know if anybody saw, XO had a couple posts in PC Gamer last year during our Kickstarter. I exclusively talked with that journalist on Twitter. That was our only means of communication the entire time. So don't forget about Twitter. Yeah. So that's about all I have to say for the time now. Yeah, it's about 30. I think good. That's like 30 minutes.
Good.
All right.
You missed a big point, and I think you should go back to it. Talking about developing your PC gamer relationship.
Yeah. Thanks, Will. Talking about making good relations with journalists. So the PC Gamer articles that we had during XO's Kickstarter were the best thing that happened to that campaign. We raised more money from people seeing the posts on PC Gamer and then coming to the Kickstarter and donating than pretty much anywhere else. And that was really hard to make happen. The journalist that I was talking to at PC Gamer, I think I met him 3 or 4 years ago. I met him at a party, and we followed each other on Twitter, and I honestly don't even remember meeting him. And we barely kept in touch over the years, but then once I was working on a game that he was actually interested in, it was super easy to get in touch with him and say, hey, like, you want to talk about this game? And even at that point, it's still like, maybe if it doesn't suck. So there's a lot of steps to building those relationships with journalists and publishers, and I mean, just really anybody. So that's where networking is just mega important for successful marketing. I think that
Putting your time in.
and putting the time in, yeah. That's kind of the thing about marketing is that none of this is really rocket science. It's really about the time that you put into it. I feel like most of this is really simple stuff, but it's just remembering that you need to do it and that it does take time, and you have to try and give yourself that time to do it if you want a good marketing campaign. And if you don't have the time, then maybe you can pull somebody in who's got more experience. There's been quite a few people like me, there's been quite a few people in the PIGSquad Slack channel who have talked about being interested in helping with marketing and that sort of thing. So there are people around who have the skill set to help you out with that kind of stuff and are looking for projects to work on. So yeah, just keep looking if you don't feel like you want to do it or you would be good at it. So that's pretty much it. If anybody has questions, I'm totally down to talk about stuff. Hi.
Do you have any things to talk or recommendations for your tools for analytics stuff outside of the database you're thinking about?
Yeah, so for website stuff, like Google Analytics is really great. You can just kind of see like where your spikes are and all that kind of stuff. Setting up Bitly links is also really helpful. I'm really upset at myself I didn't do this during our Kickstarter. So for XO's Kickstarter, we worked with Square Enix Collective, and at the start of our campaign, they sent out an email to they wouldn't tell me the exact number, but I believe it was close to 1 million, if not over 1 million people. And I use the same Bitly URL for them and for all my own marketing efforts. So it made it really, really hard to kind of figure out what if I was doing as good of a job if they were. So having like multiple Bitly links for trying different stuff is really, really great. They're super, super easy to make, and then you can kind of track what's working for that kind of stuff. And also Twitter and Facebook, I think I mentioned this earlier too, but they have their own kind of analytics just built in, so you just can track all that stuff.
Bitly links are public too, so if you want to see what other people's stats are, all you have to do is put a little plus sign after the address.
That's a good point.
Going back to the Galacticon or whatever
Yes.
you had mentioned earlier. So just out of curiosity, not to make you like relive a painful moment.
No.
What was it that you think didn't work there? I mean, was it
Yeah.
more like I mean, okay, yeah.
It's
I don't
totally
mean to open
unrelated.
up
It's pretty
Pandora's
funny.
box,
Yeah.
No,
but I
it's
mean,
fine.
As far as like,
It's
was it
good to
just
talk about this stuff.
logistics, or was it like maybe not the right venue for showing a game, or?
Yeah, so basically what happened is 3 days before the convention, okay, let me back up. So we heard about this convention like months ahead of time. They had told us that there was going to be like easily 5,000 people there, like probably 8,000, maybe 10,000. If you can tell by my tone of voice, it didn't happen. So you know, we bought a booth. We bought like ad space in their flyer that they were like, everybody walks in is going to get this program. We're like, yep, we've got a Kickstarter coming up. This is a good time. This is a good place to try using some money to promote the Kickstarter. And we had cosplay. We had a friend make costumes, and like Brian and I went and like wore like EXO costumes, like totally dorked out on it. Yeah, I mean, like we didn't really need that much of an excuse to do that, but you know, it was a good excuse to dork out. So we 3 days before the event, they had said that they were having to cancel some of the guests because of a hotel issue. And it turns out that was not true because a bunch of the actors got on Twitter and said that's not true. What it seemed like was that the attendance was just way too low and they couldn't pay to have any of the guests come. And it was just a huge, like the whole Facebook group for the event was just it was insanity. I was up till like 1 a.m. just looking at everybody being so mad. So many, just like imagine like just the most pissed off Battlestar Galactica fans from all over the world. Like, oh man, yeah. So as frustrating as that was, it was kind of fun to watch it unfold. So it was a really, really good example of like horrible PR. They tried to kind of lie about what happened. They got called out for it, and the executive producer ended up stepping down. And this like all happened in like 3 hours. So we already were like, you know, it was in Seattle, so we were like, we might as well go and see what happens. And we didn't even stay for the last day because there was like maybe a few hundred people there, and like it was just a huge disaster. So before you just believe that people say like, oh, there's gonna be like 8,000 people there, maybe just like do a little bit more research. I should have done a little bit more research for sure. We did learn our lesson, and we got hit up and asked to do I think it was like an anime convention in Las Vegas, and they kind of told us the same thing after this, and they were like, there's gonna be so many people there, and we went and looked through pictures of previous years, and it didn't look like a lot of people came, so we didn't make a big trip out to Las Vegas right before trying to raise funds for our game. Yeah.
I have a lot of experience with this with comic book conventions. There's a really easy, quick way, which is Twitter.
Mhm.
If you talk to any one person in the comic industry who's related to what you want to do, they will tell you whether they made money at that convention.
Yeah.
If they didn't make money, it's not worth it.
Yep.
Comic book people only make money if the convention sells out, period.
Yeah. So in case anybody who's watching the stream didn't hear, what was your name?
Jesse.
Jesse just said to check on Twitter with people who have attended comic conventions and expos and that sort of thing to see if vendors have actually made money, to do your research like I didn't do for Galacticon. It's a really, really good point. Yeah. Hi.
You mentioned getting a booth.
Yeah.
So, how do you go about marketing that once you do get a booth? Is there any special methods? And how do you promote getting physical engagement from your audience?
So the question was, how do you go about marketing when you're actually, if I'm hearing you right, like once you're actually at the booth and you're there on the floor, and how do you put yourself out there at that point? You kind of just have to go for it. If you're a really, really introverted person and you don't like talking to people, you might want to find somebody else on your team, or maybe have a friend who is really excited to talk to people about your game. Go to conventions and do that kind of thing for you. So I went to GDC last year, and I didn't have a booth or anything, but I brought my laptop and had like a really early build of XO on it, and I didn't go as far to like kind of like just like run up to people and be like, hey, just stop and check this out sci-fi game, because I'm not that intense. But I did just try and like just meet people and just kind of just be real and interested in what they're doing as well, and you know, be like, oh, by the way, I'm working on a thing, like, do you want to check it out? And that worked a lot of times. If you do have an actual booth, then you really just want to, I guess, be attentive. Like, don't just be like on your phone unless you're on your phone on Twitter telling people like, hey, come by my booth. But you know, you kind of want to be like head up and making eye contact with people. Another good thing you can do is just make sure that your table is really inviting. I've seen a lot of people who are just like, we'll give you a free cookie if you sign up for a mailing list, and I've signed up for everybody's mailing list who's ever done that at a convention. You know, there's little things like that you can do just to kind of bring people in. Yeah.
What about booth design?
Booth design is like, that could be like a whole nother talk. Yeah, so has anybody seen XO's booth design before? We've got like the big TVs. So obviously that's not like in everybody's budget to do that, but if you're going to conventions all year long to promote your game, like, you should really think about spending some money on your booth setup and making sure that you have a nice display and nice printouts that have your controls listed on them, so that if you're away from your booth, people know how to play your game. That's on the Game Jam marketing checklist right there.
Just gonna say that.
That's not up there. I just pointed. It's totally not behind me right now, but I'll post a link to where you can grab that in the Facebook group as well. Has anybody heard of Potions? It's Renee from Seattle. So they have an amazing booth design. We saw them at Power Play, and they have like there's like probably just a bed sheet that matches like the color of their game, and just like Christmas lights going all over the place and stuff. Like, you don't have to spend a ton of money to make it look good, but there's just a lot of cool stuff you can do to bring people in. Wick, I'm going to call you out because you guys did the thing with the high score where you had like a big whiteboard, and then people who were playing Rubicon would get, whoever was the top 3 got a high score, and then you get a free Steam key for the game. That's fucking awesome. Like, everybody should do that. Good job.
Do you have a place with PIGSquad where people can share these ideas? I have a lot of convention experience. I am a comic book professional, and I come from that world. And it just sounds like there might be some other people in this group that would have ideas. Is there a public board for this, or is it just...
Yeah, so online, the Facebook group would be a great place to bring that up. And then we also have, do you use Slack?
Yeah.
PIGSquad's got a Slack channel, and we might not have a channel. Actually, we do have a channel specifically for events, which would be a good place to talk about that kind of stuff too. If anybody's not in the PIGSquad Slack channel, it's slowly feels like it's starting to take over the Facebook channel, which is great. So if you're not in the Slack channel, there's a link in the Facebook group's description now. We just updated that. It's not like an invite-only thing. You just click the link, you can get in there and start talking. And then, yeah, Facebook group's still another great place. If you haven't been out to the Art Code Nights, those are kind of more like low-key social hangout sort of things. I've like maybe gotten any work done at an Art Code Night ever in the past year, I think. The name sounds like you need to be there working, and it's just like the first time I came to Art Code Night.
It's a PR thing.
Yeah.
I tell people to bring stuff to work on so that when they come and feel introverted and don't want to talk to people, they can sit down and work on something rather than blame me for them not wanting to talk to other people.
So the first time I came, I make game music too, and I brought like a little like mini USB keyboard and like my big like studio headphones, and like we were at Lucky Lab Northwest, and it was just like the dumbest place to try and write and record music. So so now I just come and have a couple beers and talk about game stuff, and that's kind of our code night. Hey,
And have me on deck too. I got a question. For
Okay.
online.
So you talk about the importance of gifts. When is your gift workshop?
okay, yeah, I should have brought this up. I was going to do this actually. So if you follow the Twitch channel there, I'm gonna make it up to you guys, and I'm gonna do a Twitch stream, and I want to show everybody how to do this thing called the overview GIF. I don't know if that's like a technical, like the actual name of what it is.
Now it is.
Yeah, it's I coined it, I guess. I actually totally stole it from Firewatch. Kind of taking GIFs to the next level. I did this thing before XO's Kickstarter, where it was like 4 quick shots of action in the game and the game's title kind of coming up, and it was just like this really beautiful hyper-focused GIF that showed really exciting parts of the game. Because making a GIF, you don't have to make one straight video of it. You can break that up in video editing, or even in Photoshop. You can drop in multiple videos and then edit that together in the timeline, and then just punch it all out. And if you're under 5 megabytes, you've got an amazing Twitter GIF that you can just reuse over and over and over. So, but yeah, I'm gonna do that on the Twitch channel. The reason we couldn't do it today is because we didn't have an adapter for my Mac on this projector. That's a good time to
Lame technology.
it's a good time to pitch the Patreon, right? PIGSquad's
Yeah, for
Patreon. Yeah. PIGSquad has a Patreon, and if you want to help us get better equipment, like another projector that takes HDMI,
Or a better Patreon that's not in shambles.
yeah. But yeah, so PIGSquad's got a big list of wish list stuff that we're gonna that we want to try and do this year too, and some of that stuff takes money, and so we have a Patreon.
You should tell us while you're on the Twitch channel.
I just said it's in shambles.
It is, yeah.
That's part of it.
The Patreon is pretty high up on our Asana to-do list right now, so we're gonna get to it.
Asana's the best.
Cartoon Network Jam is we're kind of drowning in Cartoon Network a little bit right now. Once we're past Cartoon Network Game Jam, we're gonna just hit a lot of stuff
Do you
hard.
need help?
Maybe,
Okay.
possibly. I'll give you a card. Yeah. You're on deck.
Yeah. So we got one question from online.
Is it my sister?
No, but she's very active.
Okay.
She's happy that you pronounce GIF the way that you do.
Oh. All right. So who?
Let's not start talking about that.
I just hold on.
This is more volatile than Trump.
All right. I don't want to start a debate, but I just want to know who's
Pronounces it the right way.
Who's been hearing me say GIF this whole time has just been like, ugh. Okay. All right.
Ouch.
No, I just want to know.
Ouch.
No. Okay.
Question is.
Me and Dominic talked about that all last year.
Any advice on using a website as a central hub for marketing your game / indie studio,
Yep.
Such as things like e-commerce?
I don't know too much about e-commerce. So I'll say this. So if you've got if your game's released and you've got some T-shirts you want to sell and that sort of thing, then yeah, you should definitely have a website so that you can set up something like Stripe or just a PayPal widget or anything like that you can get going in there. Having a website is obviously super important. Having a shitty website is a total waste of your time. So unless you're actually good at making a website, you should get somebody to help you do it. It took me a long time to figure out.
PIGSquad's website sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. That's on the
Sorry.
list. That's on
I didn't wanna
Asana
interrupt.
too.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So some things to think about for website stuff would be having a really good call to action. So you want to just have a dedicated space where all the latest and greatest stuff is just right there. People don't have to dig to find your trailer or a Kickstarter link. Everything should just be really accessible. Yeah. So yeah, having a website's super important, especially after release. I'll say this: if you're just starting out and you're just kind of trying to get your name out there and that sort of thing, I would definitely have a website. I wouldn't stress out about it too much, especially because you can see like sometimes going into a Kickstarter with like a website that it's clear that you spent like $5,000 on this website, it's like maybe not the best approach, because then it kind of makes it look like you don't actually need the money, and that's a real thing that people think about when they go to Kickstarter. Like they'll see a project with this like amazing website, and you know they've got like this beautiful trailer that's just like all cinematic and everything, and they can say like, these guys don't need my money. They've got, you know, they got enough to do all this stuff. Why do I need to try and help them raise like another like 20 grand? So, kind of a tangent, but yeah.
I'd add too that having a website, being able to refer somebody to a URL, either vocally or on your business card, is so useful. Rather than saying Google search my game. I didn't have a URL for PIGSquad forever, and it was always in the back of my mind that it would have been just so much easier to send people to pigsquad.com.
Yeah. And another thing you can do too, if you don't have your website in shape and maybe you want to direct people to your Kickstarter or to your Steam Greenlight page or something like that, you can have myhotawesomegame.com, and maybe that goes straight to your Kickstarter when you've got a Kickstarter campaign going. You don't even need to have a website for a little bit. A press kit would be a really great thing to have started when you're getting going too. So if you've got a website that just sends people your press kit, that's got your screenshots and your videos and all the good press links and a bio and all that good stuff. So
It's cheap too.
it's free.
Domains.
Oh, domains are super cheap. Yeah, domains are, yeah. Yep.
It's really cheap.
I'm gonna get this guy. And then
So speaking to sponsors, like you said, you were not Square Enix and you were also for Intel.
Yep.
How do you get around towards getting those? How do those help you market?
I couldn't hear the last part you said. Sorry.
How do you get around to getting those sponsors?
Oh, like-
how do they help you like market?
Yeah. Yep. So Square Enix Collective specifically, I had read a post-mortem by Tanya Short, who did Moon Hunters, which went through Kickstarter. And this was when I was just researching, just putting together a Kickstarter campaign and everything. She had a really, really great post-mortem about their campaign, and they were the first project to go through Square Enix Collective with a Kickstarter. So I just looked into Square Enix Collective, and what you have to do for them is you basically have to put together a pitch that looks a lot like a Kickstarter campaign. So you've got the elevator pitch and what the game is about and screenshots and all that good stuff, and you have to just basically email that to Square Enix Collective, and they approve it or they don't approve it, and then you go through a 30-day, I think it's 30-day feedback phase where the community votes on your campaign. And if enough people like it, then Square Enix Collective might help you with your Kickstarter campaign. So there's a lot of like kind of steps that that have to happen before it goes that far. And then the third step would be them helping you publish the game through like additional marketing stuff. So yeah. So for me, just like I guess how we landed that was just kind of doing the research and just filling out all the forms for it and just pitching our game to them, and it worked out. Yeah, so, sorry, I should have mentioned that. So there's no catch for you to go through the feedback phase, and you're not on the hook for any of this, so it's like a 3-step process. So just because you do the feedback phase, which is awesome for marketing, by the way, that was, going on Square Enix Collective was one of the first like big like press releases I did, and like an actual big like media push. So you don't owe them anything for that, and you don't have to do your Kickstarter with them. So you can have like 90% approval rating, and they can say, we want to do a Kickstarter with you, and you don't have to do that. If you do a Kickstarter with them, they take 5% of your total earnings, which is stupid low for how many people they can reach out to. So like I never would have been able to send an email to like 1 million people, and paying 5% of your Kickstarter for something like that is totally worth it in my book. So, and we had a really good experience with them too. I'll say that. Like, they were really, really awesome, and had a lot of really great advice for us, and helped us get a lot of press that we wouldn't have been able to get on our own. So.
Which event did you
Skip
say
you, sorry.
ended up being the most helpful for your marketing campaign?
So not Galacticon. So GDC was really good because there was just so many different people there, and there was a lot of PIGSquad people there. So that was like my first like kind of big gaming convention. Like ever, and I was still pretty new to PIGSquad at that time too. So being able to kind of go to something like that with a big group of people that I kind of knew really helped out. Definitely helped me get into a couple of the parties and that sort of thing too. But I didn't have a booth, so there was kind of that downside. So it was super good for networking, but as far as like getting eyes on the game, wasn't good for that because it was all kind of walking around just trying to talk to people. We did iFest and Power Play were two that we did in Seattle that were really good. A lot of people and super low cost for a booth. We also did. Brian went to PAX with Intel, which was a really cool relationship, and we were able to get in there for free. So that was really awesome of them to bring EXO along for that. What else did we do last year? I went to Indiecade, but we didn't have a booth there. It was kind of the same thing as GDC, which was just kind of like setting up a few meetings and hanging out with people, but no actual booth space. So booth spaces can be really expensive, so you kind of want to think about when you want to drop that money. If you're going into a Kickstarter campaign and if you've got some money to actually spend to promote that Kickstarter campaign, then having a booth with a good demo is really worth it. But if you're kind of in the middle of development and you don't really have like a big thing going on, then I don't think I would drop a ton of money to I think like a booth at GDC is like $3,200 or something. It's really expensive. Yeah, right. That's just the booth space. You got to think hotel and airfare and food and all that kind of stuff too. So it can be really expensive. What's awesome about living in the Pacific Northwest is we're really close to Seattle and San Francisco and LA, and a lot of stuff happens there. So you really don't have to leave this part of the country to go to pretty much all the great stuff. So that's really good. I would say if you've got the money to promote your game, I would wait until you're closer to release to drop that kind of money. It's going to really help you get into some relations with press and that sort of thing. There's also a lot of extra stuff you can do with these things. So there's like the Media Indie Exchange, which I think the entry fee is like $20 for that or something, and then they just like set you up with a table and you just bring your game. Beardo went to a couple of those, I think. This past year they like won an award at South by Southwest and I think at Indiecade. It's pretty affordable to go to that. Also, Indie GameCon in Eugene was a really great one for us too. Oh yeah. Oh man.
Was it the right one?
Maybe. No.
Well, then you just, it's
Does it look right?
No.
Okay. I don't think I have time to do the GIF thing anyway, but I will do that on the Twitch channel. We'll post that up on PIGSquad's YouTube and stuff like that too.
Maybe we'll do an event too. I know that some people are talking about doing like a sprite making workshop and stuff like that. So maybe those fit together.
Yeah. You had a question. I kept skipping you. Sorry.
What goes into a press kit? Twice.
Yeah. So how am I doing on time?
Last question.
Okay. Last question. Press kit should just have like all the best stuff. Somebody should be able to take a look at your press kit and find everything they need to find. So the most up-to-date trailer, like your 8 to 10 best screenshots, a bio about your company and who you are and your background, what your game is about. So beyond just an elevator pitch, like 1 or 2 paragraphs that just says like why your game is just the best thing ever. And there's actually, if you go to Jump Drive's website and click on press, that'll take you to a press kit that is something that I put together with the team that is a really good example of kind of like an up-to-date thing that just covers all the bases. So
So is it a link on the website, or is it like a zip that you can send to people? Or?
it could be both. Like typically, so when you're emailing like press and kind of just anybody, I feel like there's a certain etiquette about like when you can send somebody an attachment. So it's kind of like the way that I used to kind of think about it is like first email is like an introduction, like do you mind if I send you this stuff sort of thing, right? And then if they're like, oh yeah, send it over, then you can kind of, the attachment thing's okay. But sending like cold emails to people with like a 10 megabyte attachment's like probably not the best idea. So
Unless you're talking to press and you have a demo.
that's true. But you can always link to a demo from like a Dropbox or something like that. So
But you should always do that.
yeah, so I would always go links over attachments like whenever you can.
Also, I hit spam easier if it's a big attachment.
True. Yeah.
Like a cold email.
Yep. For sure.
Also, isn't the press kit you mentioned earlier, at least I saw the parentheses after
Yep.
the free Lambier
Yep.
Ramius Mill one, it's a good one to check out.
Yep.
Just
Yeah, do press kit, and there's like do contract is in there, which is like maybe we should have talked about that earlier. Do contract next time we'll talk about that. But yeah, there's a bunch of free like dev tools and stuff like that to help you with marketing and legal and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
One thing I want to say really quick, the point of why I was bringing that up is not enough people do this. When you are reaching out to press, don't ask, I don't know if you said this already, don't ask if they want to see a demo.
Oh yeah.
Just send them a demo,
Yeah.
because then they'll just be like, I don't give a fuck, and
Yeah.
then they won't care. But if it's there, then
Yeah.
there's, like, why go through that correspondence? You should just get it out there.
Right. So
So many people don't do that.
yeah. So Steam keys really. I want to make another point about that too. Just maybe
Do it.
Okay. One last hot tip. So Steam gives you unlimited keys. You can have however many keys you want. So, like what Will said, if you're going to reach out to press, like don't ask them if they want a Steam key, just give it to them. If they don't use it, who cares? Because you have a million of them. Doesn't matter. Another good thing about being greenlit on Steam is that you can start sending keys for early builds of your game. What's awesome about that is, say you submit your game to Indie Mega Booth. So what happens, and this happened to XO too, we submitted a game that was like, we had like a 4-month build, we submitted that to Indie Mega Booth, and it was like, you had to like upload the actual build, right? So we can't take that back. So we can't say like, well, we've been working on it for 3 months and we got this, it looks a lot better now. We can't, they're stuck with our April build of the game. So we didn't get into Indie Mega Booth because it was a really, really early build of the game. When you're greenlit on Steam, you can just put in a Steam key, and then they're always going to have the latest version of your game. So what's great about that is that you have to submit those entries like 3 months before they ever start judging it, and your game's probably going to be way better in 3 months. So that's like an added bonus to getting greenlit on Steam, and it's pretty damn easy to get greenlit on Steam nowadays. You need like 1,000 yes votes.
PIGSquad can help with that.
And
Yeah.
PIGSquad can definitely help with that. There was like, there were four games, maybe more, greenlit on Steam last year in like under 2 weeks. So, yeah, go for it. Cool. That's it. That's my marketing.